Hello, everyone. Welcome to a really short video that we're making to cover what students and families should be thinking about during the February month of the college search process. And we're talking about both juniors and seniors. So we're going to cover kind of the beginning of this college journey and also getting towards the end of this college journey. My name is Sawyer.
And I'm Jess.
And we are the co-founders of Virtual College Counselors. And so we release a newsletter every month, putting lots of useful free information out there. If you find any of this helpful, please go to our website, subscribe to it, and you'll receive not only a monthly message with our newsletter that has this list on a website page, but also you'll be able to receive some of these videos and more videos to come. We're hoping to produce a lot more video content this year. But let's just hop right into it. So Jess, why don't you talk a little bit about maybe the first bullet on the junior list?
Absolutely. So juniors right now should be thinking about college fit. And college fit looks different for every student, which is great because there's 4,000 schools in this country alone. And it would be really difficult if every student wanted to go to the same one. There's just not space. So when we talk about college fit, we are thinking of things like one, financial fit, academic fit, social fit, cultural fit. And inside all of that are infinite subcategories: class size, school size, location, proximity to an airport, what kind of students do you want to be surrounded by? Do they have the major that you're interested in? Can you go there if you don't know what you want to study? All of those kinds of things kind of fit into the idea and concept of college fit. And now's the time for juniors to start thinking about what that looks like for them. And it's okay to not have the answers for everything, and not everything needs to, you can have more than one box in each little kind of department, for lack of better words. So you can be interested in both a big and a small school. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself quite yet, because you're not finalizing this list for at least a few more months.
Right. And speaking of the word list, next we're talking about kind of that college list. The college list is essentially your list of schools you're researching, eventually gets shrunken down to schools you're applying to, and then eventually from those applications, you're going to choose a school that you're going to go to. So kind of when we're talking about college fit and building that college list, they go in tandem, and both of them are living documents. They're living processes, right? Students are growing and changing as people. If you are looking back at yourself, especially from a student, 4 or 5 years ago, comparatively to where you're going to be 4 to 5 years in the future, you are a different person, and you probably have grown quite a bit. So we want to think about that same way when we talk about that college list. It might start out with just schools that your parents know about, or maybe schools you've heard your friends talk about, or even local schools. But as you start to understand that fit formula a little bit better, you understand what you're looking for, then you're going to be able to start understanding, hey, just like Jess said, maybe I started out really liking big and small schools, and maybe there will still be a mix of them, but I'm really kind of leaning more towards those small liberal arts schools because that is the community or maybe the academic environment that really seems to click with me. I want small classes. I want to know my professors. I want to have an interdisciplinary education. So as you're working on that fit formula, college list building kind of goes hand in hand, and it very much is a trial and error. You're window shopping, and you are learning a lot about yourself through this process.
The next most important thing is staying engaged in extracurriculars. So now is not the time to get senioritis, juniors. That will come. It will come later. We'll talk about that. But right now is really important to stay engaged in the extracurriculars you're already engaged in. And you might also find something new that you want to engage in between now and the early fall when you submit your applications. What colleges are looking for is that students are finding meaningful experiences. So if you're not super excited about NHS, but you have other volunteering opportunities that you are excited about, absolutely do those instead. No one cares. What they care about is that you're looking for ways to engage in your environments in meaningful and valuable ways to help you grow as a human being. So look for interesting opportunities and start to explore, and don't spend the whole summer binge watching Netflix. You can spend a portion of the summer binge watching Netflix, or even a portion of every day doing that. We fully support that self-care matters and you need time to recharge before senior year starts. But summer is also a great time to engage in maybe a new job or a new passion project, anything like that. If you are wondering if it counts for college, send us an email. We're happy to let you know if it counts. And spoiler alert, it does. It counts.
Absolutely. And when you send us that email, you should send it through a college appropriate email. So a lot of students, especially juniors, you either have maybe an email that's a leftover from maybe your early days of being involved on the internet. So maybe it's an obscure reference, maybe it's some kind of cute child nickname, maybe it's not totally work appropriate or college application appropriate. Alternatively, maybe you are using an email from your school, which is really awesome in a lot of aspects, but maybe not so much for the college search process. The reason being is that oftentimes at the end of your high school time, high schools are pretty quick to take away access to email and also to any kind of Google Suite options you have. So any of those files or documents. So we want to make sure that really that transition from end of high school to the beginning before summer, when we talk about college, is when you need to be able to communicate with your school the most, because you're going to be doing a lot of important summer work, kind of getting everything ready for that fall. So one, we need it because your school email address, if you use it, isn't going to transfer over. Two, when admission officers are looking at your application, they will likely be able to see your email. And if you ever talk to an admission counselor via email, they will see your email. We want to make sure that it's appropriate because we don't want that to negatively impact their perception of you or your college readiness or your application. So really just pick a combination of your initials and a full part of your name, maybe some letters or numbers that are significant. So they could be everything from maybe when you were born, your favorite numbers, to the year you graduated high school. All of that kind of stuff is totally free game. And you can do a quick Google search to also see what other people are doing with that.
And the last two things we want to touch on for juniors are pretty quick, but they're pretty important. So first thing is picking your senior year classes. Students ask us all the time if they're allowed to, drop a language or drop a math class or a science class. Allowed to, sure. From the college perspective, colleges want to see that students are still engaged. So what a lot of students don't know is your junior year grades are typically the last set of grades that most colleges will see. Until that mid-year transcript is sent, and sometimes you already have those admission offers on the table. So if these are the last grades that you get, you have to do well in school right now, and also think about planning your senior year courses. So those courses need to be as rigorous as your junior year courses if possible. And ideally you're engaging in subjects that you're interested in also. So if you already know that you're interested in engineering, we want to see some of that high level math and high level science class kind of stuff. If you're going a different route, you can kind of plan accordingly. But in general, we'd like to see that students are still engaged during senior year. It's totally fine to take a planning period or but we also, if you're taking that time off during the school day, we want to see it supplemented with really difficult and rigorous classes. The caveat being, you should only take classes that are rigorous to the point of you being able to do well in them. So don't take too many difficult classes that you can't actually do well. Your academic success is as important as the classes that you're choosing to take.
Right. And the last one on the junior list, we know it feels like a lot, but as we said, we're kind of just starting the process with the class of 2023. We want you to start thinking about standardized tests. There are a lot of options in the college admissions world for test optional. It's been around since before COVID showed up. It's not something new, although a lot more schools have adopted it. Some schools might stick with it. Some schools might not. What we advise that every student take a standardized test at least once, either the ACT or the SAT. Take a practice test of both, and whichever one you like more or did better in, maybe that can be the one you focus on, for a couple reasons. One, we want to know a baseline. If you're a really great test taker, you do really well, that can be a huge boon for your application. Alternatively, let's say you apply and maybe you don't get an excellent score, but you get a pretty good score and you want to go to a school or a state that requires standardized tests. Because it's not just test optional to get admitted to some schools, but also test optional when we talk about financial aid. So maybe you have to submit a test score. So we want every student to have at least one test score on file just to be safe as we kind of move forward through the process.
And now on to our seniors, class of 2022. This is the fun and super anxious time of year. So a lot of students already have offers on the table and many more are still waiting for the vast majority of decisions to come out. So while you are waiting, we want students to, one, remain engaged in school, because that final transcript will be sent to your college, and colleges will rescind your offer of admission if you do not keep your grades where they were before.
Right.
A B instead of an A, totally not a problem. If you're dipping below that, or if there's a significant disparity between your previous grades and this year's grades, time to start to study and rectify that, because we want you to have options, and we want those options to remain options at the end of the day. But for all of the seniors that are still kind of navigating the process, there's still a lot of applications that can be submitted. So students who are still working on that, we want you to focus on those honors colleges, the scholarships, and the last remaining regular decision applications that you're interested in submitting.
Right. And that kind of ties into when we're talking about receiving those admission decisions or kind of applying to those last minute ones, ties into really kind of the main idea that we talk a lot about when we're at this point in senior year, which is like financial aid, keeping us in the loop, making sure that you have all of your ducks in a row when it comes to documents, whether it's admission letters or award letters. One of the things that we do with all students that work with us one-on-one with a school or with a private organization is come spring, once you have quite a few of those different offers on the table, we want you to digitize any piece of admission update you receive. So those acceptance letters, those scholarship award letters, those financial aid award letters, including everything, digitize all of those. And then we will have them meet with us. They'll send us those beforehand. They'll put them in a Google Drive. Jess and I will be able to look over them and kind of put them side by side and get rid of all the kind of obtuse or obscure or bureaucratic language that makes it kind of difficult to read those sometimes, and really sit down and go, okay, well, here's the prices, and prices part are fit. What about the other aspects? Can we start to narrow this list down to that college you're going to choose to attend in the fall? So in that sense, we want students to keep us updated. We want students to make sure that they're digitizing those letters, whether they're of admission or of financial aid. And especially if you're a student or a family working with us, we want you to do all that and then schedule a meeting so that we can actually sit down and talk about what does this final decision piece looks like. Because if you've done the college search right, you should love pretty much all the schools that are sending you offers. And in that case, this can be a really challenging time to take all those schools you love and narrow them down to the one that you're actually going to go to.
Also, a lot of deferrals are happening this year. This isn't new, but it does seem a lot more rampant this year, just from our perspective and from our students' perspectives. So if you are being deferred from a school that you really are still interested in, touch base with us. You can submit letters of continued interest. You can still demonstrate interest in all of those things. But the real last thing that seniors kind of need to be thinking about in February is, when are you going to visit the colleges that you have on the table? If you've already visited, great. You might be able to make that decision without going there again. But if you haven't visited, we do highly, highly recommend that students step foot on campus before making a decision about attending. That feeling of stepping foot on campus is really a gut check to make sure that this is a school that you really could see yourself spending 4 years at, because it's your whole life. It's not just your education. So it's really important to kind of start planning ahead, and you might not have all your answers yet. So some of the travel plans might need to be a little bit spontaneous, to say the least. But in general, a lot of students are able to start planning at least 1 or 2 visits to their top choices. And ideally not during the college's spring break, so that you can actually see what the school is like when students are on campus.
It's true. I have done that. Yeah. I visited the College of Charleston during my spring break. It was a beautiful, beautiful trip. It was a lovely campus. I have since been back and seen what it was like on a tour, but rest assured it was completely closed on their spring break. So it was a little bit of a waste of a trip for me. But really, I think the thing too, and just kind of said about it, is your top choices, right? Not every student is going to have the time or financial resources or availability to visit all the schools on their list. And we don't even necessarily recommend that. But once you really start to trim it down, especially if you can get to like a top 3, it's really worth taking that time. If a family's going to go buy a car, they take the time to go out and test drive it or go to the dealership or do some research on it. Same thing, right? You're essentially investing, depending on where you're going, 2 to 4 cars over the next 4 years into this education. And so we really want to emphasize that it is important to go out there and test drive that campus and really get a good feeling for it. And the other benefit too is there are a lot of events that colleges will be hosting, like scholarship days or admitted student days, or some kind of thing where you might stay the night with a current student. So not only are you visiting, but you're going to get a really good feel of, one, the school as it would be to you as a first year student, but two, the other people around you who are also thinking about attending that school. And so you can get a vibe for who are the people you'd be going to the school with. So visiting those schools is really important. So this was our short video. Like we said, we wanted this to be really quick, really kind of reemphasize all the points that families and students of juniors and seniors should be thinking about as they go through both the beginning and the end of this college search process. There's obviously still several months between our juniors and really reaching, that comfortable point where they can say they're done with it. And there's still a couple months between our seniors and really deciding where they want to go. But every month along that journey, we're going to be releasing our newsletter. As we mentioned at the beginning, it's going to be full of college and education and admissions news updates. We'll usually highlight blogs that we've made, like, for example, how do you find college fit, or how do you write a why college essay to explain to them why you're interested in their college. And along with that, we're also going to be giving one of these short videos. That way, not only can you read it through our newsletter, but also if you are one of those people like myself who likes to hear it and likes to see the person talking, you can take some time and listen to us while you do something else as well. So if any of this was useful, or if it was maybe something that you think someone else should hear, please subscribe to the newsletter, share any of this information with your friends or colleagues, and visit our website. We obviously work one-on-one with students, but we have a lot of free resources open and available to everybody, regardless of where they are in the college admission process. So once again, my name is Sawyer.
And I'm Jess.
And we are the co-founders of Virtual College Counselors, and we're here to help and support students and families through their journeys. So feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. But otherwise, I hope that everybody has a lovely day.